Good afternoon, Michelle. I think what the presidency's Rudy Dick said around how long it would take for us to really see the impact really gives us an idea of that Operation Vulindlela and the reforms are of a long-term nature, or at least medium to long-term, taking 3 to 5 years before South Africans can really feel that impact. And just as a reminder, there are 7 priority areas for Operation Vulindlela since it launched in 2020. The key focus areas was, of course, around energy, water, freight and logistics, the visa reforms that were needed, as well as telecommunication. And that report for the first 3 months of phase 2, giving us that progress report on those 5 priority areas and how well the operation has been doing in making those reforms. When we look at energy, Michelle, saying that private sector participation has improved significantly, leading to about 12,000 megawatts of confirmed electricity generation projects currently on the ground. The water use license issue, also those backlogs having been cleared and now taking about 90 days to get a new license. When it comes to the e-visa platform, agreements with 34 countries and in discussion with 12 more countries. But of course, that is more on a macro level, Michelle, with phase 2 looking at really then fast-tracking economic growth, which really is the mandate of Operation Vulindlela, but to ensure that that economic growth is inclusive. So phase 2 focusing on a digital public infrastructure to, of course, make internet access a lot more accessible and cheaper to more South Africans, as well as spatial planning, building cities that are a lot more dynamic and closer to service delivery and economic opportunities for all South Africans. And then the one that a lot of focus will be on, especially with what has been taking place over the past few weeks, is local government reforms, ensuring that we do see better governance, better accountability and better use of government resources when it comes to ensure that they meet the mandate of delivering quality services to people. But let's hear what the presidency's Saul Maska had to say around the local government reforms and how those would work, which are, of course, a part of the second phase, Michelle.
There is a performance-based financing mechanism established through the Urban Development Financing Grant that National Treasury has put in place to encourage metros to implement quite far-reaching institutional and financing reforms of their trading services. Initially, both electricity and water services, and that's been supported by the World Bank. That basically provides an incentive for those metros to implement the reforms. There are very clear milestones and targets that each metro has to meet in order to access that financing. And you're talking about very significant amounts of funding. So 54 billion rand from National Treasury over 6 years, which would unlock a further 54 billion rand in matched funding, capital investment in water and electricity infrastructure above the baseline in metro budgets over the same period. 108 billion rand in additional money, new capital investment in that infrastructure that will flow as the metros start to implement those reforms.
So, Michelle, that's on the local governance reforms side of things. And we know why that is important, because at local government level is where things happen when it comes to ensuring good public services for citizens and getting really innovative. That was what really stuck out to me as well during the briefing, is that municipalities and government leaders are really being encouraged and challenged to come up with innovative ways to make their metros more attractive to economic opportunities and investments, as well as then that spatial planning for more dynamic cities. So talking about fast-tracking the issuance of title deeds, unlocking the value, especially of sort of the low RDP housing that could be bringing that disposable income into the economy. So some of those those issues that were outlined as we then kick off that second phase of Operation Vulindlela. And remember, Michelle, some of the tasks that needed to happen with the first priority areas are ongoing. So the team is not then letting go on the work that they're doing in the energy sector, in water, in freight and logistics, in visas and so on. They are continuing the work that they're doing there, but 50% of the reforms of phase one have now been met, allowing them to then really start streamlining phase two, Michelle, and hopefully then phase two in the next few years will also be about 50% complete, with the first phase then completely done to be able to move on to other reforms, Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, right? These are all the buzzwords that we need to hear about unlocking reforms, getting our local municipalities to work properly. We know that the bulk of corruption happens there, though. And we know that corruption is a big bugbear that is perhaps stopping the economy from growing in a way that it needs to. Perhaps it's even at the heart of why we can't get GDP up, can't ignite the economy, can't create jobs. So these are all wonderful buzzwords. Phase two, 50% on track, local government reforms, smarter spatial planning. But are we talking about corruption at all at Operation Vulindlela?
Well, when we did speak about that 3.5% growth and the aim still being to attain 3% and above by 2030, and really that's to make a real dent on unemployment, that issue did come in. And the angle or the approach that Operation Vulindlela seems to be taking, specifically when it comes to those local government reforms, is giving incentives where then the leaders do have some tasks to meet and a tick box to be ticked before being able to access additional tranches of financing. So if you did hear from Saul saying that that 58 billion rand funding from Treasury that will be matched then by investment from private sector, to be able to access that, local government institutions will have to meet certain milestones before getting any of that funding. So that being one of the ways that Treasury and the presidency is hoping then improves that accountability and governance, because money will not just be given for projects that come up from any sort of local government or municipality, but they will have a long list of milestones that they must meet, that must be tick boxed by Operation Vulindlela before they get more access to those funds. Rudy Dix also did highlight that that is the one area, Michelle, that will be a bit challenging, because departments also have their own sort of protocols on how they do things, how people are appointed. So those are some of the issues that Operation Vulindlela will really be digging into a little bit more closely as they kick off or the phase two, or get into the second quarter of the second phase of Operation Vulindlela, is to look at issues of appointments. How are people appointed in local government? How are projects overlooked, and what sort of reward system is given to local government entities when it comes to them being able to access more funding? So those are some of the ways that they're hoping to be able to sort of ring fence and deal with some of those issues around corruption, but also having the right skills to be able to do that work timelessly and meet those milestones, Michelle, over the past 5 years. So they did touch on it, but a lot of stakeholders that would need to be involved to make sure that Operation Vulindlela is able to make the impact that it's looking to make in that regard, Michelle.